Good to see you.
Jim is on the way.
You can just take a
Kevin's
photo if you want.
opinion that this needs permit.
You can plug me in, I'll put the agenda up. You want me to plug in, I can plug in.
Plug into what?
There's no TV feed.
Oh,
Really?
With the agenda.
Or on YouTube.
Something.
It's not on the agenda.
not on our agenda.
No.
So
No,
shall I
we-
tell him that?
First,
You can set a date.
the driveway
Yeah.
permit? No. I was just telling Todd, the last we heard, we hadn't confirmed a formal date because they never responded to an email. So I'm not sure Kevin Nelligan's going to be here, but Jim is coming. It's Kevin's opinion that they need a variance anyways, so, you know, from his perspective, he's just gonna say, listen to what Jim has to say.
Yeah, he's gonna say whatever he's gonna say. Right.
So my suggestion is, since they're here and Jim's gonna be here in a few minutes, let's just move forward, get them on the agenda, move forward. Or I recommend you
Why
follow.
is Jim gonna be here?
Jim's gonna be here because, the manner in which the permit is approved, he wants it to be conditional. So he wants to articulate to you why,
Oh, so he wants to come to us, but he's not on our agenda.
well, the whole project's not on the agenda,
So why would Jim be here?
because I just called him.
Mics are up. Mics are up.
Something's up.
I get it.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, put it at the bottom and give Jim a little more time. You're adding a C and then you can move it up as you see fit.
It is,
10C. The Cirque driveway variance. At
Others.
543 East Wakefield Boulevard.
Did you see the nice article for home cake?
Yeah, that was good.
everyone else set? Today is Monday, August 7th, 2023. It's 7:03 PM. Before we begin, I'd like to mention the passing of town resident, former chairman of the Energy Commission, a former member of the Economic Development Commission, and a former member of the Conservation Commission. John Wiarda passed away on Tuesday, July the 25th. Can we have a moment of silence? Thank you. Call to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Morehart.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
Linda Grappo.
Jack Borg. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
agenda review. We have a couple things. Jack, go ahead.
Mayor, under new business, I'd like to add item B, discussion of the fluoride survey.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor? And we also want to add under unfinished business, item C, driveway ordinance at 543
Yep.
East Wakefield Boulevard. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor? Unanimous?
I'm gonna stay.
Okay. 601 or 501?
When we get to that topic, I'll be recusing myself.
Okay. and Selectman Sedlak is excused. Can I have an approval of minutes from our regular meeting on July 17th? Thank you, Jonathan. Is there a second?
Second.
Candace, any discussion? Candy?
Yeah, under item 13, under, item 13 was new business. It was the discussion with the town planner and director of economic development regarding a Route 800 corridor. I guess I'd maybe like to add a little bit more detail to this, because we had asked them to come in about the development of this corridor, and there was a discussion, but it didn't include all of Route 800. It only was the southern portion, and we had asked about the, northern half above Main Street as well. And then we had also asked about, what about the the revenue up on those in both areas. And I don't know that we had assessments of property potential for that road yet. I think that's something that they were gonna go back and do. So I was wondering if we could just reword that a little bit.
I think they only shared literally 2 properties, basically. They gave us an update on properties that had recently sold and interest in another property. But I didn't see any development opportunities. It was really basically a map of the area and in helping us be aware of where that area is, on our, to look at. And the grand list growth was, so it was really just to bring us up to speed on the scope of the area and 2, 1 sale and 1 other piece of property they're interested. Unfortunately, the town owns no property in that area, so, not much that they can share in the way of a development.
I guess I would, if I was to reword it, I would go Lance Hansen and Ted Schaefer had a discussion with us about how they would move forward with identifying development opportunities and recognizing that that would be part of the grand list growth for the town. Members of the EDC offered additional input and explanations of their mission and discussed, was it 2 properties?
2.
2 properties.
Didn't we ask for more information?
In the future, yep, to come back in the future to talk about it again.
And I think just adding that line, and
You want to strike assessments of property potential?
Yeah, because they didn't really,
Okay.
they talked about maybe, the Economic Development Commission talked about 2, but if you remember, Lance and Ted were talking about they were glad to be here so that they could focus or refocus on Route 800. When we asked about the northern half in the industrial park, that hadn't been part of what they discussed at all. So just kind of want to.
Yeah, and Candy, to your point, just adding another line there, saying that we asked them to report back to us in the future about these issues.
Yep.
Yeah, just so that we know that the minutes reflect their intention to come back.
I will rewrite and I will send to each of you to
Thanks.
sign off on.
All right, thank you.
So do you want to table these minutes for now?
Yes.
Right. Tabling the minutes from August 17th, or July 17th, I'm sorry. Moving on to item 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. They speak only once. Who wishes to speak?
I'm going to stand for the moment on this. Today happens to be Purple Heart wounded in battle. And out in California, they had the first meeting with the 13 families of the 13 servicemen that died in the suicide bombing at Kabul in Afghan. So, I think we should just bow our head and say a little prayer for those families that are suffering. Okay. I placed on your desks a packet which has all of the documentation concerned with the issue I've been talking about. I want this to be the last time I have to stand up here or sit here and bring this to your attention. I mean that. I also want to bring to your attention that there are 3 individuals sitting here right now that I gave my word as an officer and a gentleman that I would not conduct any further actions without consulting them first. My word is gold, right? I will not. Now, one other thing I want to bring to your attention, I received 2 days after I had surgery, poison pen letter. And this one has no return address on it. And the letter inside is not signed at all. Okay, now I got a little ticked off at first. Then I come to the conclusion, why am I getting upset over a coward that couldn't sign a letter indicating that they disliked the fact that I was a bully, I was an old, grumpy old man? No, that's far from the truth. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to get involved and lower myself to this level and go tit for tat with a coward. They can't put their name to a letter. I myself stand in the shadow of a bunch of traitors. Yeah, traitors that did very well. I says, we're talking Thomas Paine, who said, if you don't dare to offend, you can't be honest. And there was George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, the Adams boys, Hancock, Henry, and so forth, and all the others. They put their signature to a document, for lack of a better, was a warrant for their death, a death warrant. It's called the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, if they got, we didn't win the war, the revolution, they got to stretch their necks on the gallows. And so I'm pretty proud to stand behind it. And they put their signature to that document. Not like this person, which is a coward, can't do that. And I've always put my signature to whatever thing I put out. So, with that said, you can read the documents that I provided for you at your leisure. As I said, I made known that I will not move any action forward unless it comes to, breaks the point where I have to. I don't want to be sitting here and have to do this. And the situation extends only to the then sitting selectmen of the BOS in 2013. You people are exonerated. You haven't done anything. Jack, I spoke to you outside. I want to commend you for the fact that you ask a lot of questions. I am sorry at times I took a dim view of you, and I correct myself. I was wrong, and I admit it. Keep it up. Ask the questions. You and I may not ever agree on most of the things, but at least you want to clarify everything. You want to get transparency, and you ask a lot of questions. I'm proud of that, to say that to you. You get the big attaboy, all right? And Ms. Perez, I asked you to clarify your decision as to why you found my lifestyle, you dislike my lifestyle. Have you an answer for me?
Oh, are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to the wall.
Really?
Stop raising your voice, please.
Are you going to start with that skunk when you did with James Roberts when he came in with the skunk hat and you called all the critics back in 2013 skunks? Are you going to tell me why you dislike my lifestyle?
Stay in place, keep.
She made it public.
Time's
I want
up.
an answer. You're not going to answer me, right? Typical. Yeah, I know it. Let me see. I don't worry about things.
Time's up.
Excuse me. The truth is like a lion. It doesn't have to defend itself. But a lie doesn't like being challenged. And a lie will
Time's
lay it.
up.
Say again?
Time's up.
You gonna do that to me?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
You don't, you're not the mayor.
He's not calling me out.
Well,
Please begin to wrap up your comments.
okay. Simple fact of the matter is, we have a situation here, it was an iniquity, a vile, dark, black iniquity that was committed in 2013, right? And that needs to be correct. That was an injustice done not just to the critics that complained about the BOS at that time, but it was also an insult to all the veterans, and also the fact that they committed this punishment unknown to the rest of the Winstead population. So with that, you have to decide for yourself, where's your conscience?
David Gordon LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winchester, Connecticut. I just want to speak in regards to what the captain was saying, in regards to the agenda of February 4th, 2013, which he speaks and all the selectmen got a copy of. The freedom of speech is paramount. It is number one as the first freedom. And those who abridge freedom of speech should look themselves in the mirror and say, why? Do they not want the truth to be known, as the good captain has stated, who served in the Merchant Marines during the Vietnam War? I am not a wartime veteran, but I am a disabled veteran. I want you to know I come here not only as a citizen, but as a veteran. And I wasn't going to speak on this issue, but in regards to the Civil Service Commission and your actions that you are going to try to take in regards to that good commission and the commissioners wrote a letter to the Board of Selectmen. And in that letter, they point out succinctly why they believe that the commission should remain in place. And that letter was never read here by you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, can I read the letter?
It will be read tonight.
I'm sorry?
It will be read tonight.
For the record,
Yes.
verbally. Okay. Well, in that, they say that the Civil Service Commission is a commission that was formed back when President Ulysses S. Grant was President of the United States. And that was formed in 1871 and signed into law by a congressional act which stopped political patronage, which stopped political appointees from being fired and as well as removed as civil servants because of influences of political patronage and partisanism behavior. Now, we know here in our town that we have those tendencies, human nature, okay? So no political party should have the upper hand in regards to a civil servant being the town manager, who his past political affiliations are well known and publicized. He says now he is a unaffiliate. That's great, and that's fine. That's his right as an American. But subsequently, we see that we need the checks and balances of the Civil Service Commission. Having been appointed to a position in civil service in a previous town that I lived in, civil service gives veterans 5 points for just being a veteran. It also gives 10 points if you're a disabled veteran in any capacity. Therefore, this system, which we don't know what it's going to be, it's in effect going to be run by the king, excuse me, not the king, the town manager. But we know we've gone away from being a kingship, and we are we the people, and we the people demand transparency and accountability. Mr. Chairman, I want you to know, and I said this to you before privately as well as publicly at meetings, we do not have an ethics commission. In effect, we have 2 members who are members. Since 2017, actually June of 2017 and July, they have not met because we lost Judy Dixon in the town as the attorney. Also, we lost a good attorney with Mr. Slavankin, Mark Slavankin. So we don't have those legal beagles on who they were political, but they weren't. They didn't serve on town committees. And that's one of the instances in the ethics code which we must follow. So let's be ethical. Let's keep civil service. They're doing a great job. They're volunteers, and they're made up of both political parties and unaffiliates. And they do a yeoman's job. Executive session, they are having entry-level police officers. They're working with the chief of police to streamline it as the town manager wants. So you have that check and balance, and it's not going to be nepotism. I can tell you, after talking to officers in this town who have been officers, that in the past, Winsted, being a small town that it is, and you know because your father was the chief of police, and at the time there was a big investigation, and that's when civil service came into being, with people who were friends of people, and it wasn't your dad who was doing it, but they were given jobs politically because they had different alliances and whatnot. So we don't want that. We want the best ability, the best possible candidates in our civil servants for the tax office or the land use office or police department. So that's what we need, and you should stay the course and do the right thing. And even if it's just one of you that does the right thing, so be it. And I hope that you reconsider if you're thinking on voting against civil service, because they do a yeoman's job. Both Mr. Delaney, who is a good Democrat, and Joe Nichols, who is not a Democrat. I think he's unaffiliated. But anyways, and the good ladies that serve on that board. The town manager has a different view. That's okay. We can disagree, or we agree to disagree. But thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else?
Yeah, you can pull it straight down.
All right. Hi, Deb Kessler, 272 Gilbert Avenue. I'm just here tonight to speak in support of the Historic Commission. It's something that I think this town has lacked for a long time, a way that we can, embrace our history and use it in a positive fashion in terms of tax abatements and protections in place for different properties. I think when any of us travel, you go to communities that, what do you like about it? Well, I know when we go someplace, we like seeing a town that honors its history. The buildings are taken care of. The town has a vibrancy to it because it has embraced that rather than look the other way from that history. Years ago, we talked in meetings here about East End Park. And in researching East End Park, which is one of our 2 historic districts, something came to light. Because a historic district is part of the National Register, does not protect it in any way, shape, or form. At the time that you get that designation going, you've established a precedent that these buildings, this area deserves that protection. But it doesn't take it any further. So in 1977, the East End Historic District was developed, and at that time there was this beautiful building called Gideon Hall Junior House, and it sat where CVS and the gas station now sit. That happened after the historic district was established. If we had a commission that had oversight, what could have been done to possibly protect that building and to have maintained the character? Could CVS have been encouraged to move into a building? It happens other places, you know, where you have adaptive reuse, that you maintain the exterior. I think there's so many benefits to having a commission of this nature. It just doesn't make sense not to pursue it, and I really sincerely hope that you'll consider it and move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on to item number,
I think we'll skip over 6A at the
okay,
moment.
skip 6A. Moving on to, we have no 7.
So I'll give my report. Oh, 6A.
Yeah, fine. He's got it.
Well, no.
New
not yet.
employee introduction?
Yeah,
We're going to put that aside for now. Moving on to item 8, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going through, actually, before I get to different updates, I do want to state for the record, I understand that I have run for office in the past, and I know that this has been brought up at several public comments, but I feel the need to say for the record once more, I am an unaffiliated individual. I do not align with or affiliate with any party, whether here in the town of Winchester or on the state or national level. I am a nonpartisan town manager, and I appreciate my position as such. Moving forward into my specific updates, cultural district. The state of Connecticut has recently put forward the notion that different cultural districts can be established around the state. And there are volunteers here in Winstead, so there are different towns, I should say, that have established a cultural district. Torrington is one of them, New London's another one, there are some small towns as well. And there are several volunteers from around town that have come together in an effort and have approached my office to try and have a portion of downtown Winstead designated as a cultural district under state definitions. It would provide Winstead with increased access to the state's resources to market various cultural offerings that we have here. That includes, but isn't limited to, the American Mural Project, the Museum of Tort Law, the various performance venues that we have, including the Gilson, a long-standing venue, and more. So stay tuned for a little bit more information at coming meetings. This is obviously something that does require the Board of Selectmen's attention and would require ultimate approval before it even goes before the state for consideration, and they would make the ultimate designation. But that is an item that was brought forward, and there is dedicated money in the state's budget to supporting cultural districts around the state. With only 5 or 6 towns that have the designation, it would significantly increase our visibility. With economic development, both the Curious Cat Bookstore and Home and Cake opened as new businesses on Main Street since the board last met. We've received word that a business has signed a lease and will be moving into the old Wendy's building this coming fall. Stay tuned for more specific information on that front. Within the Route 800 corridor, I'm also happy to say that the interest that was expressed seems to be moving forward very well. I know that there has been some turnover at a couple of the businesses on the southern end of the Route 800 corridor that we had referred to at the last meeting, and I'm hoping that at the next meeting we can reveal a little bit more information about what's going to be happening at that site to the public. With grants, the town is currently in the process of finalizing both a steep and a brownfields round 18 grant application. With the Brownfields Round 18 grant application, I'm trying to take a focus, and I hope with the board's approval and consent, we can take a focus at a town-owned property, that being the parking on Meadow Street. That is directly across from 32 Lake Street. Currently, it's not capped, it's a dirt parking lot. However, by regulation, it is supposed to have a layer of asphalt over it. This would be an opportunity for us to beautify and enhance that space while using state funds without any level of match needing to go towards it. And beyond that, we're considering several different options for the steep grants, all of which are supposed to be geared towards, of course, your small town economic development items. It's a small town economic assistance program with the state. With the historic district, I've talked about this a few times. We'll have discussion on the historic commission tonight, as one of our speakers has already mentioned.
Within human resources, the town has hired a new purchasing agent. That's Don Morelli. Don will be in to meet members of the Board of Selectmen at one of the upcoming meetings. And the town has also hired a new communications and technology coordinator, Alexa Hinton, who will come to meet the board as well. With jobs, related to jobs, the town is in the midst of planning its next job fair to be held in mid-October. Please keep your eyes out for more information as that develops and becomes a little bit more publicly visible. The Mountainside Drive request for proposals has been reissued. It's been reposted. We have multiple agencies that have expressed interest in this parcel at this point in time, more than we had in the first posting for whatever reason. Responses are due back to the town at 9:00 a.m. sharp on September 22nd, 2023, so next month. We have a top concern that we've discussed ad nauseum over the last couple of years, and I know long before that, has been parking on Main Street here in Winchester. It remains a top concern of mine. We had somebody who was here and spoke from the public at the last meeting related to parking in and around the area where they house their business. So the chief of police and I wish to approach the Board of Selectmen at a meeting in the near future with a couple ideas on how to resolve the dilemma, that some of which I've already had the chance to share with members of the board, others of which I'll continue to have conversations with. But this is something that I would like to take action to address, given that our more long-standing items, such as nose-in parking, are a bit farther off. Related to town training, all town staff will be engaging in a training session from 8:00 a.m. to noon on Friday, August 11th, 2023. Town offices will be closed during this time, but members of the police department, public works department, and senior center have been excused from the exercise to make sure that facilities stay open and safety services continue to be operational. Tax payments will be accepted through the drop box outside the tax office in Town Hall and online during that time, but I apologize for any inconvenience for folks who are hoping to stop into Town Hall during those 4 hours. With union negotiations, negotiations with the police union have progressed. This past Friday, August 4th, we had ground rules that were observed and signed, and we'll be able to continue our exchanges within the month. A few events to mark on your calendars. We have Monday, August 21st is the next regular Board of Selectmen meeting. Monday, September 4th, town offices are closed in observance of Labor Day, and the next regular board meeting thereafter would be Tuesday, September 5th, given that the Monday we will have town offices closed. Are there any questions that I can answer for the board at this time?
Andy?
Yeah, it's not, well, it's related, but it's not specifically related. Later on in this meeting, we're gonna be talking about sale of town-owned land.
Yep.
And it reminded me to go back, over a year ago, we approved the affordable housing plan here in Winston. And one of the things in that plan was talking about, affordability, was talking about the rents here, why, all that kind of stuff. And there's a survey that went out underneath the town's Facebook page.
Yeah, we reshared it.
About the housing survey again, which reminded me to ask, what have we done? Because one of the things I know that I suggested and I thought would be helpful was to have some seminars or meetings in town to have first-time home buyers, or in this case, people that may be renting now that wanted to buy a home, to have a workshop where we would talk, where the people would come in and talk about the state program, that's out there to help first-time home buyers, and for, and maybe, I know some of the banks do some, first-time mortgages like that. And I'm just wondering if we've had any, and I've missed them, or have they happened? Because as we look at that survey that came out, and as we look at what we're probably gonna end up doing with one of our current properties, and we look at the issue of, what we wrote in the affordable housing plan, it just seems that that some renters, if they could pull together a down payment or pull together some extra help in that down payment, or having a lower down payment, it would be cheaper for them to own the house than it would be for them to rent the house. And that's kind of related later on in here when I think about things. So I was just wondering, have we had any? Has anybody done that?
So, it's a great question, and I think that we should have more on it. In my time here, we have had a seminar that was held related to first-time home buying, and I think it was before we adopted the affordable housing plan, if I'm remembering correctly, with the social services coordinator. She had pulled in a real estate agent or two, and they had a joint presentation. I believe, however, that was the winter 2021 into 22, which means it was before the housing plan was adopted, which means we're due. We're overdue.
Well, it just would be good, because if we are selling town-owned property, and there would be an opportunity for people and us,
Could
you
they
know,
possibly
to
buy
be
it,
able
yeah.
to, other towns do this, you know, they make it, you know, so it can happen. So I just was
Yep.
curious if we've had one and I missed it. I know there was something way back, maybe it was that Little Red Barn, maybe? But since the affordable housing
Right.
plan, have we had it?
And I don't believe that we have, so let me,
Yeah, because there was another thing on the television, I don't know, last night or tonight about, you know, people having help
Yeah.
with, you know, housing assistance and stuff, so. I know we do that individually, but I didn't know where we were.
okay,
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Candace?
Survey results on the parking survey from June 14th, are we gonna see those results?
Yes, I will make sure that I have the results for you at the next one. It's one of those items that I keep pushing down the list
You
because.
brought up the parking, that's why I asked, yeah.
No, it's a
Yeah.
good question. Just keeps getting bumped down the list, but it is in progress, and I will have a full report ready for you.
Another thing on economic development, since we discussed, you know, the Route 800 corridor, have you directed them to refocus their efforts or reprioritize, you know, the economic development director as to what areas? Because obviously, no. Are you not going to mention the Greenway?
Well, I'm hoping that I'm happy to discuss what's already happened, but I'm hoping to save some big news for a couple months from now when hopefully everything's really buttoned up.
Right.
But I am very happy to say right now that moving out of the Senate Appropriations Committee, we have at least 2 congressionally directed spending grants, and one of those is $2 million for the Sue Grossman Greenway. So that would be a wonderful addition to the Route 800 corridor.
Well, it's the only thing that we have for economic development that we can have a bit of control
we have control over.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Everything else we can do our best to steer, we can do our best to encourage, but at the end of the day, we don't have that final say control. So I completely agree with you. So certainly that's been a focus of mine and our grant coordinators, trying to make sure that we have an understanding of where grant dollars are coming from and what sources we need in order to complete any given project. If this moves forward with congressionally directed spending, we can stop worrying about that so much, which would be really nice.
But also redirect our efforts on the
Right.
property issues.
So on the land use side, right. Well, there are 2 things. First, I've asked for all land use items, we're trying to shift our focus, not just talking about Main Street. I've been focused on Main Street a lot over the last couple of years. This year, my focus is really on those larger commercial and industrial spaces, so and areas that can be developed in that way. So just like the Route 800 corridor. In general, one of the main focuses that we've had over the last 3 weeks since this group last met is a new business that is hopefully moving into an underutilized space right now. So I'm optimistic in that area that we discussed, so I'm optimistic. But beyond that, also now pivoting to the northern section of Route 800 so that we can come back to you and say what are the next steps in that area too. It's all part of the puzzle.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Josh, I have 4 different points I'd like to bring up. First, just really simple. Under the events about upcoming, I know I can mention it later at the end of the night, but the end of the night may be 11 o'clock and it may be too late for some people. So the Soldiers Monument on August 13th between 2 and 4 is having a special presentation, historical presentation regarding some of the soldiers that are enlisted from here. Our historian will be making that presentation live, and if it rains, the event will be held at the community room in Whiting Mills. And while we will meet again before this, I just want to remind people that on September 11th, which is an anniversary of the building of the monument, we will be having an event, and that event will be a band and a public picnic. Bring your own. From 5 to 7. Don't bring your own band, but bring your own picnic. Those are events. Number two, I'd like to comment regarding parking. It is, we haven't talked about this, you and I know you've got a group that's talking about this with the chief, but I want to go on record saying I don't believe we need meters, nor do we need a parking aid. Somebody goes around and marks off how long somebody's been there. So I want to make sure that you hear me on that issue. Number three, you kind of skipped over it, but the nipper bottle deposit earnings.
Yep.
I know you've got a group that's looking at how that money can be used. I'd like to suggest the fact that perhaps that money can be used to help pay down our cost for the Regional Refuse District. We have a yearly cost in our budget to pay for that. If this money, because it's supposed to improve environmental quality and the solid waste disposal system, perhaps that money can be used for RR&D, number one. And my fourth issue, and Jim, I hope I can bring you in on this a little bit. I've been involved with some of my friends on the Brook Street culvert break-ins, and I know they're eager to have some kind of a priority list of where they stand. And I know you sent back to them, you got a lot of things in motion. But I do know, and I've seen it, that when water breaks down through the culverts aren't working, it backs up into their basement. You know that, you've been there. And so I would encourage, because it is it's a cost for them. Every time water goes back into their cellar, they have to clean it up. And that additional cost has now resulted in between, I think it's bordering on $7,000 to $10,000, some of the expense that they have. So I would encourage you to put that higher up on the priority list to get those culverts fixed as soon as possible. I know that's a big job. You've got engineering to do, and I know you're with the last flooding and rain, you've got problems all over. But if you can at least put that a little bit higher on the priority list and help them out. They're just fearful every time it rains, it's going to be back up into their basement. So I would like to encourage you to put that a little higher up on the priority list.
For what
Thank
it's worth, that's currently penciled in for Wednesday, the 16th.
Yeah, I saw that on the message, but that's still a week and a half away, and there's rain
pretty
coming
good
in the
time.
next 2-3 days.
I think
They're
that's
fearful.
excellent.
They're fearful that any water that doesn't go down those drains.
I think it needs to be a very significant rainfall for it to impact, and I don't think these storms are getting down, but
Well, we hope.
I hear what you're saying, and so let it be written, so let it be done.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking you to do, just to listen to that. Thank you. And I know you've been very responsive to them, and that has been very helpful. Thank you.
Quick note to Jack related to parking. Anything that comes forward from myself and the chief of police for further discussion will not include meters or any parking aid.
Great. Thank you for that.
Well, if Jack's going to talk about events, so will I.
Go to it.
So we still have the summer concerts in play. The next one is Thursday, Key Bar, and then we have our last two of the concerts, King Saison on 8/17 and West Hill Groove on 8/24. And we are going to have our Fall Foliage Festival again since 2019, and that's going to include a car show. So we're going to go from Town Hall all the way to Railway Cafe. We are going to have parking and a vehicle that will pick up at different remote parking lots like the Tort Museum and I guess you call it the rec building in the cemetery there. And then we'll have drop-off points at the beginning of the festival and at the end of it. So the Tort Museum has kindly allowed us to use their parking lot for parking, and the town is allowing us to use perhaps a senior center vehicle for the day, and that would be from 10 to 3 p.m. So we're very excited about that.
What's the date again?
September 30th. Thank you.
September?
I did mention it, September 30th, and we actually have a rain day the next day, which is unheard of. And we're also going to have a really great 20-foot booth in front of IGA, and that's going to focus on, it's going to be housed by the Economic Development Commission and hopefully the town manager. I've given him a job. And we're going to focus on the, why people reintroduce Winstead and Winchester to visitors. We haven't done that before at our festivals. It's a really missed opportunity, I think. So that's, this year
Super.
we're doing.
So glad you're replanning that and
Yeah.
and bringing it back. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Kim.
it, sorry.
Linda, anything? Anything?
I'm all set.
Jonathan? I'm gonna mention this later, but what is the time frame for the new charging stations?
New charging station, we actually have a signed agreement now, and we're able to proceed just as soon as they have the materials ready to install.
Excellent.
That's on the installation side, I think what you are going to mention.
Yes.
That's kind of the next step, right?
And where's that one going to go?
So it's going to go at the rec building down towards the
Got it.
ball
I
fields
forgot.
over there on Raleigh Street, yep. 75 Raleigh Street.
Thank you. Moving on to item number, actually, before we move on, do we want to table item 6?
Item, sorry, you seem to
New
have a different.
employee.
Yeah, we'll table it for now.
Okay. So we will table the new employee, the part-time assistant recreation director, until a future meeting. Moving on to item 9, correspondence. Anyone have anything? Seeing no correspondence, moving on to item number 10, boards and commissions.
I can take care of that.
Thank you, Linda. Thought I was gonna have to do it.
Okay.
Take it away.
Go ahead. Okay. Okay, an application for appointment has been received from John Noon as a permanent member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to expire June 27. John's application will begin the vetting process and move to step 2, which is new appointments to be voted into nomination on our August 21st meeting. Next up is the application for appointment for Esther Dew as a permanent member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to expire 6/27, replacing Thomas Sullivan. Her application will be placed into the final step for a new appointment at our next meeting in August. That's it.
We have reappointments.
Pardon me?
Oh, we don't have a reappointment.
Oh,
Sorry,
No reappointments.
sorry.
Thank you, Linda.
I'm gonna be just picky here. It's always soldiers, S apostrophe. Whenever you write it, it should be soldiers, S apostrophe, after the S.
So noted. Moving on to item number 11, unfinished business. Item A, 23-53B, consider and possibly act on the removal of Chapter 12 of the Code of Ordinances. Josh?
So as we discussed earlier, I do think it would be right of us at this point in time to read into the record a letter that was sent along from the Civil Service Commission, actually addressed to me, but that was shared with all members of the Board of Selectmen and has been available on the town's website for over a month now. It's dated July 17th, and it reads as follows. Dear Josh, thank you for your email correspondence of July 13th, 2023, to the Civil Service Commission members regarding your intentions for elimination of civil service and replacement with a town-directed management model, per your terminology. On behalf of the commission members, I can attest that the commission members do not take any of the actions personally and are supportive of the work to promote the best hiring practices for the town. You are correct that there is confusing and contradictory language in some of the CSC rules and regulations. As you know, the commission has been receptive to meeting with competent and knowledgeable legal counsel and civil service regulations to make revisions as appropriate to address those inconsistencies and help where possible in expediting testing processes in general. I understand that you have presented to the Board of Selectmen that the CSC process has caused delays in hiring personnel. It is true that the CSC process adds a step in the processes. This provides the check for which civil service was introduced in ensuring that fair and impartial hiring is adhered to. I would contend that any time this adds to the hiring practice is invaluable for this reason. There is no question that the majority of towns and municipalities do not employ civil service and rely on other human resource models for their hiring practices. Past less than professional actions on the parts of previous town managers as well as members of the Board of Selectmen were the cause of the introduction and inception of civil service, in place to ensure that nepotism and other improper practices do not occur. Civil service serves as a check and a balance against abuses by the town manager or other public officials and derives its authority outside the local regulations by state statutes. As recently as 2008, the commission was forced to retain outside legal representation due to interference by the town manager in the hiring practices and are defined by Connecticut general statutes as well as legal precedent. In the absence of civil service, the recourse would be, as you indicate, limited to the Board of Selectmen, who have not always been professional and complimentary as is the case at present. The Board of Selectmen needs to keep the history of the town and previous miscues in mind as they implement their wisdom and knowledge in the course of the town, in the course the town wishes to pursue for future hiring practice. As always, the commission remains at your service. Sincerely, Francis S. Delaney, President. So there have been items that have been brought up, I mean, in the time I've been here, a lot of cons against civil service, but also a few pros. Obviously, it was brought in for a particular reason at a particular moment in time. However, after evaluating all sides of this, I still remain confident and I feel comfortable continuing with my recommendation that these changes be made at tonight's meeting. There was a request at the last meeting by the members of the Board of Selectmen to continue to amend and present to you here tonight amendments to the town's hiring practices and procedures as adopted by the personnel policies. So within your packet, actually just after the letter from the Civil Service Commission, you have the section of our personnel policies that specifically relate to hiring and appointment policies. I have gone through and redlined the changes that I am proposing be made and accepted by the Board of Selectmen tonight as part of an approval process for the removal of civil service. Never mind with the new red lines. The new red lines are overkill from my perspective, but also needed. What we had before with the new personnel policies was a robust set of language, a robust document that protected the town against any level of nepotism, any level of cronyism, and ensures that there is a check and a balance. And that is, and always will be, the Board of Selectmen having a check and a balance on the town manager as the executive with the hiring of that individual. If in the event anything is amiss with these policies, now that they are explicitly written, adopted, having been viewed, having been accessible to the public on the town's website, it's very easy to know if a violation is made within the hiring practices. And it's important that the Board of Selectmen continues to have oversight over what the town manager is doing. In the event that there is a misstep or wrongdoing, any recourse may be not limited to termination. Not limited to and up to termination. So we have an opportunity right now to move forward with a new hiring process that is actually better designed, in my opinion, than civil service. What we have within this packet with some of the new red line language is ensuring that the Ethics Commission has the power to review hiring practices in the event that the Board of Selectmen asks them to, if an item is referred to them. We also have the opportunity, as presented by the new language here in the personnel policies, to enhance job posting procedures and the receipt of different applications by actually redacting names and other identifying information within the applications that are received by the town to ensure that there's no way that any individual that's reviewing the applications has the opportunity to know who is applying, know who, the information of the individuals that they're looking at, and to discriminate on the basis of gender, age, race, anything else. So these hiring practices are very firm. They're, I believe, much better safeguards than anything that you have in the confusing and contradictory language of the civil service rules and regulations. The fact that any of the language there is contradictory, I think, is grounds enough to seek a new route forward, especially after all this time. I do appreciate the service that all the members of our Civil Service Commission have given to the town. But at this time, I feel that a new course is needed, and I continue and maintain my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that they adopt the amended ordinance, which in this case is the repeal of ordinance number 12, which is within our code, and authorize the adoption of the hiring and appointment policies as presented to you tonight. I'm happy to take any questions that the board has.
Josh, when you did those red line changes and provided us with copies ahead of time to review, has anyone else reviewed these changes besides yourself and us?
Yes, I've had a number of, I've had both the town attorney and the labor attorney have been sent these
On
documents.
these new changes since our last discussion?
Yes.
Okay. So that what you're proposing in the hiring appointment policy changes have been reviewed by legal, and you have received legal advice that
Yep.
this
That
is
they are
fine.
acceptable.
They're acceptable.
And not that the legal advice is going to say this, but again, from my perspective, they are better safeguards than I had even presented before, and I thought those were pretty darn good.
Okay. If we go ahead and amend the ordinance and delete it, it is not necessarily requiring that these changes not be made in the hiring practices. You could do these hiring practice changes anyway, right? We could make it so that we could vote on these new changes that you're proposing, because you had presented that to us before.
Yep.
As one issue, and still continue with the amendment to eliminate the ordinance for the civil service.
That's correct. You could have two separate motions, and you can adopt one without adopting the other. I think is really what you're asking.
That's what I'm
Either
asking.
way.
Yeah.
However, none of the hiring and appointment policies are going to take effect related to full-time employees that we are seeking to gain in the town's employment until such a time as civil service is dissolved. And that's because the civil service rules, as the ordinance currently states, supersede the personnel policies.
All right, so you're saying it's a timing issue to do one and then the other
No, I would recommend that both be adopted at
at the
tonight's
same
meeting.
time?
Yes.
I don't agree with the Ethics Commission being reviewing the hiring practices. I said that the last time. That if we're to review hiring practices and you're the one, it should be the Board of Selectmen. It shouldn't be the Ethics, I think it should be a labor attorney. I don't think it's the Ethics Commission. I think the Ethics Commission is residents that are not versed in labor law. I don't see how they can judge that.
So you could divide the question if the board decided that it wanted to adopt all of the personnel policies with the exception of page 13 as presented, which is the Ethics Commission reviewing hiring practices. But I think the important clause is actually the first sentence here in this document. The Ethics Commission is hereby empowered to conduct investigations into improper hiring practice at the direction of the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen would have to choose to ask they would have to say, we are too close to this, whatever the case might be. This needs to be an independent panel. We are asking the Ethics Commission to step in at this time and review the conduct
But
or
we're
the
a
process.
financial body and policy. I don't know.
Well, and that's why I think you might want to ask an outside body to conduct an investigation, because you are a policy agency and you are a financial agency as the Board of Selectmen. So to keep the investigatory process out of your hands and to take a recommendation and findings from an independent agency is probably superior to conducting it yourself.
Candace, would you agree that maybe in that phrase, the Ethics Commission, along with a legal advice from an attorney, the town attorney, just put that as part of that phrase? So that we have the commission plus an attorney?
I'd like to hear from Candy.
Yeah, it struck me tonight after comments before, as well as the ethics thing too. The Ethics Commission is for people that are charged with making money off of something that they've done with regard to town access. It's about the actual getting paid and making money. So over the years, the things that have come forward are always, if it's not connected to somebody getting paid or benefiting financially from something, then the Ethics Commission really isn't that involved in it. Or it doesn't happen. So we would have to either go back and revamp what we want the Ethics Commission to do, I think, or I have another idea. So this is just a rough draft, and I apologize that I didn't think about this before tonight. So on page, in here, on page 13 is the whole thing I'm gonna talk about in a minute, but it also talks about it in some other red line things about where it says Ethics Commission would have to be removed. So what I did is kind of took a combination of what was written here and others, and I would call this the hiring practice review. I would say a 3-member Board of Selectmen committee will meet quarterly to review the hiring process with the town manager, including but not limited to the advertisements, resume review, interview process, and board procedures. So that lets us see and make sure that he's following all the things he's supposed to do. Right now, I say quarterly, maybe it moves to semi-annually once it gets off the road. Then, if someone would like to bring a complaint, it goes to this 3-member committee, which would then go to what you have in here. So if there's a complaint brought forward, the 3-member Board of Selectmen Hiring Review Practice Committee will review what has happened and then decide to move forward to the full board or move forward to hiring and the labor attorney to review the matter. So taking the Ethics Commission out of it, replacing it with a 3-member Board of Selectmen Hiring Review Committee that reviews everything, the practice that's happening here in town, and then if there's any complaints, they take a review of that, and then they know if they should take it to the full board, or to the labor attorney, or to the town attorney. And that way, it just keeps it in line with everything that happens. Town manager is responsible to the Board of Selectmen responsible to the people. We want to make sure that it's going fairly and correctly. The Board of Selectmen can be ensured that they have eyes on how many advertisements were put out, where they put it on Indeed, was it just put on a little post on the website, was it, where did that thing go? How was the interviews conducted? Was there one interview for everybody, 2 interviews after 1 round? Only 2 people got interviewed. We would know all that in addition to if there were complaints. So that's what I would throw out there.
Question, Katie. Would you think that this 3-member board should be a standing board that we appoint after every election?
Yes.
Or do you think it could be 3 members that change every quarter to keep that active?
No, I would make it a 3-member standing board that's appointed like a liaison board at the beginning of every election. That way, people have background and knowledge. I mean, you also know that every selectman has a right to go to, to see any of the materials that are reviewed. We all have the right to go to any commission meeting. We have all that. So I don't see it as, somebody wants to know something and they can't know it. It's just that the 3 people would be responsible for making sure there was a meeting and making sure that it happened.
And I would want to make sure that if you're thinking about a 3-member standing board, that it be fairly split between,
That should be a given.
yeah.
We've done that this whole
Yeah,
time.
I know. Just want to make sure.
Well, it should be a given. We've done that all the way through, so.
Yep.
I actually think it's required by law, technically, if you have a standing committee. Yeah.
Well,
But anyway, it should be a given, but.
I like that idea. That's,
So do I. I just don't
I
like
do
it. The, Ethics Commission is, never been involved in something like that. I don't think they have the qualities. I don't know that we have residents that are capable of that. It's a legal issue,
Yeah.
It can be a legal issue.
Yeah, I understand why the Ethics Commission, the word ethics just
Right.
evokes that. And there are people that I think could, do that. I wouldn't think that people couldn't do it, but the whole ethics board charge is not this. So if we went to something like I suggest, then I think it would just fit in better with, like I said, the whole line of responsibility, and it also expands it to review practice, not just,
Well, we could take your wording, because you're still working on it, and take a look at it at our next meeting and do some approval of it then? Or, because I'm still hearing a little bit of wording changes that you're making.
right, so, and that's just on this, the ethic
Yeah, that's just,
commission reviewing hiring practice, which I want to change to hiring practice review. And just those other language, incorporating some of this, striking ethics commission from the places where he has it on page like 15,
so you're focused on
15,
page 13.
17. Yeah, well, on 15, 17, I'd strike the ethics commission and make it the board of selectmen, 3-member review board, or whatever
Wherever that phrase comes up.
Right.
it is. I
would
mean,
vote
so
for
I
that.
think that we could approve tonight the removal of ordinance for the Civil Service Commission, and we could approve the hiring and appointment policies with the expected rewrite that
Right, it would like be planning and zoning. We're tentatively approving that, but this has to be voted on and successful.
So like the job posting procedures would be in place. In here, if you look at this document, qualified candidate, having things redacted would be in place immediately. The interview evaluation and hiring procedures on page 16 would be immediately updated. And the one on 18, the one
Well,
on
17, you'd have to remove the ethics.
yes, but wherever it said that would be removed, but,
Yeah.
the rest of this nepotism, everything else would go, be approved and go in.
Right.
Just so that stuff is ready to go, and then the final language for this review board, review committee, standing committee, would just
Yeah.
need to be approved at the next meeting.
17, 19, and 20
Yeah.
words, yeah. I like your idea.
And I will say this, too, for the people that, I was a school principal for 10 years, and before that, I was an athletic director. I was given the responsibility by the school system to interview and hire coaches, and I was given the responsibility to hire and also make recommendations for removal, if necessary, of teachers. Our recommendation from our committee and from myself, as well as the high school principal at the time, or any principal really, would be made to the superintendent, who would make the final hiring practice. The superintendent didn't have an outside review board. The superintendent just had a board of education, like the town manager has a board of selectmen. I think in today's day and age, there's enough ability to see what is happening. And I would, and as a principal, if I had done something that was negligent or was something that I wasn't supposed to do, or had some slant on it to kind of skirt an issue, then I would get called out and most likely would lose my job. So I think in this case, that's what this is that the Board of Selectmen, we have the right now for the hiring and letting go of a town manager. So if there was something in the hiring practices that was not done the correct way, it would either be a corrective supervisory action, or it would be, that was really, really not right at all, and we should, not be here anymore. The person shouldn't be here.
Seems
So-
reasonable.
So I would say that with these protective things in place, what Candace said about being able to include the labor attorney when necessary, I think is really important to do.
Yeah.
Now, it would end up there anyway, but I think that would be very important.
Other discussion, or do we need to take some action?
If we do this, it sits for 15 days and then it becomes
Gone.
gone. And so we would have two motions, process, two motions to removal of chapter 12 of the Code of Ordinances. And then the second one is to approve the hiring practices and procedures as presented by the town manager, with the exception of the ethics review.
Well, I think I made the last time the motion to move, and I'll move that the Board of Selectmen remove Chapter 12 of the town ordinance from the Code of Ordinance as recommended and presented by the town manager.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Candy. Discussion?
Do we not have to have contingent upon, this section redrafted, or,
Well, I think that's what the second motion will be.
Okay.
Yep.
It has 15 days, before it goes into action, and we have a Board of Selectmen meeting in 14 days.
So,
Yeah, we have one more.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
so those dates work. All right, seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to remove Chapter 12 from the new Code of Ordinances? All in favor? Opposed? 5-1. Motion number 2. Motion number 2 is going to be to approve the hiring and appointment policies provided by the town manager. Contingent upon the changes of striking page Ethics Commission from page 13, replacing it with a standing, 3-member standing board made up of selectmen.
Hiring practice review.
Hiring Practice Review Commission. Removing on page,
Yeah, references to the ethics.
removing Ethics Commission from page 17 and replacing it with the Hiring Review Commission.
Yes, 15 too, page 15 also.
Page 15.
Just any reference to the ethics commission, I think is all
Well, it's
necessary.
actually not in, it's an addition, but yeah, modify that.
Just to make it simple, Tom.
Okay. So replacing Ethics Commission with
Hiring
Hiring
practice.
Practice Review Commission on pages 15 through 20,
19, it's on 19,
no, page 15 through the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a hiring practice commission, but committee.
20,
Committee.
committee. Right,
Change to
through
committee.
to page 100, just say that. 13 to 100.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Or unanimous?
I have to excuse myself for a moment.
I'm gonna send this to you.
Okay, that would be great.
While we're waiting, I'm just writing, a 3-member Board of Selectmen committee will be established and meet quarterly to review the hiring process of the town manager, included but not limited to job posting, resume review, interview process, and onboarding procedures. The committee will also receive complaints and forward them to the full board or to the labor attorney.
Okay.
And you could add some words or whatever, or have Kevin.
Yep.
Moving on to item B, 23-54, consider and possibly act on the proposed Historical Commission's ordinance. Josh?
I want to keep this brief tonight because I think we talked about it at more length at the last meeting, and you already heard a little bit about it tonight from one of our speakers, but it's my belief that a historical commission that could oversee the administration of the several historic district commissions that are necessary to administer the different historic districts we have around town, and the creation of any new historic districts is necessary. So I have drafted this here draft ordinance for your review and consideration. It's been available on the town's website for some time. There's a legal notice posted, to that effect, et cetera. And this is the second of 3 meetings where this needs to be heard at a public meeting before it's particular action can be taken. So we had a speaker here tonight who noted that there's a level of advocacy that could occur in the event that we had a historic commission regarding the preservation, maintenance of different historic properties around town. And this is a body that I think will help protect the character of the town, that can help the individuals who currently own some of the historic properties around town to maintain them in a cost-effective manner. And we certainly have enough people around town interested in the historic preservation of the town's assets that I believe we could easily bring together 7 individuals to staff this. I believe we would be very well served by adopting this ordinance. And so I recommend that this be forwarded to a 3rd meeting on August 21st, 2023.
So I'll make the motion to move that the Board of Selectmen formally acknowledge their consideration of adopting the newly proposed ordinance and further consider it in a third instance at the next regular meeting on August 21st, 2023.
Second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Discussion?
I just have one question. On section 20-7, you just talked about an annual operating and capital budget. Do you have an idea as to what that would be?
No, so my vision with the commission is that this does not require any money to operate. What I'm instead envisioning is that the commission will prepare a report to the town manager, and then if needed, if requested by the Board of Selectmen, to the Board of Selectmen about what does the town need to be putting in to preserve its own historic assets. So what investments would they recommend be put in? So they could be assisting the Soldiers Monument Commission, for example, in putting together a capital improvement budget that's going to preserve that space for a period of time. There may be other assets that the town owns now or in the future that they may want to weigh in on where there isn't already a commission dedicated to that site, much like we have with the Soldiers Monument. But they themselves, I am not envisioning, are going to be spending loads of money.
I was thinking.
Just
it
making
could-
recommendations.
So we have East End Park, it's a historic district.
Right,
So look at the water fountain.
right.
There's no plan to maintain that, only when it breaks down. So, the Historic Commission may say, we need to have that cleaned, or, what's the life cycle of the last time it was reworked? How long does that last? And so that we can have that looked at to maintain. Also, in front of, on East End Park, the marker, the historic marker needs to be repainted. And then what about the, it's not a gazebo, the podium, whatever you want to call
There's a
that.
bandstand.
Bandstand podium.
The flight plan. Is that something the town would look at, making it look Victorian to be more in line with the surrounding buildings or something like that? That's what I would envision. Or if there is a building, a town-owned building that's historic that, is not, hasn't been looked at before because no one's looking at them, so.
Yeah, you make some great points because these areas have not had any group that has been really in charge. I mean, most of it is in charge by the Public Works Department. Our property, the Soldiers Monument property that we made, well, it's public property, but there's a very active commission that takes care of it, is overseeing everything that happens. And so this kind of a historical commission may not need to do anything with us, but it certainly does need to do it with other areas of town.
And they might be allowed to say no totem poles at East End Park.
Or something.
Or something.
The
Fair enough.
The only thing I have concerns with are section 2010.
Oh, and sorry, the X's, I appreciate that you're all reading into the Roman numerals. The X's, those are just to be filled in at a later date. Just fill in the blank later.
Yeah,
My apologies.
Yeah, but it's still easier to identify that.
Yeah, that's true.
I would think that we should change the second sentence there. Shall make recommendations to administer the gifts for such person.
Which section are you referring to?
Shall,
The last one,
Gifts.
acceptance of gifts.
Yeah,
The way I read
XX-10.
this is, the commission may receive gifts in the name of the municipality for any of its purposes and shall administer the same for such purposes. Subject to the terms of the gift, I think they should not be able to administer, but make recommendations.
I don't know how they can receive them either, or wouldn't that go to the municipality and be designated for the commission or something like that? I don't think a commission can receive gifts.
We receive donations.
Right. Oh, that's true.
Right.
So and anybody who's donating to the Monument Restoration Fund goes into a restoration fund that is marked Soldiers Monument Restoration Fund. Sometimes we get gifts for.
Estates. So then there should be a reporting of same. So the commission, you know, like you
And
had
we
to
do.
reconcile your gifts.
Yeah,
So, right, that, there should be some sort of line item for that commission that,
for this commission too, yeah,
right, I'm saying this,
absolutely.
including yours or whatever, yeah. Because that was a black hole that was resolved this year or the year before. But see, that's where I think almost, how do you know you get it and the municipality doesn't get it? You know, why does the municipality get it designated for you and then it goes into your account? Do you receive it for Soldiers Monument directly?
Yeah, every donation that we get that is earmarked restoration fund, we give to the finance department.
Right.
And they put it in the restoration fund account.
Right, which is a Fund 15 account, which means it doesn't elapse at the end of a year.
That is
It's not
correct.
the annual operating budget.
Yeah,
You have
it
two
has nothing to
separate
do with the
budgets,
operating budget.
we know
It's a special
all
fund
about now.
for complete restoration. Over the time, you know, we've
Yeah.
probably got 100,000, maybe not quite $100,000 in donations over the last 30 years. So that's how we've done the work at the monument.
Right. How do they give you the money? Do they just say Soldier Monument Commission and then it comes here and then they give it to you?
During events, we will take
Right,
checks.
Right.
Okay. If it's an event that has cash donations, we have a separate jar that says for restoration. There are items that people can buy, T-shirts, hats, and stuff like
Right.
that. That's a different fund. That doesn't have to do with the restoration fund. That allows us to purchase more hats and buy more things.
I'm thinking more along the lines of, I don't know, estates, donating their estate to you and how, all that.
We had a couple of that. We've had, I think we've had two $10,000 donations in estates over the last 30 years that I've been on, and that went directly because the estates
Goes right
listed
to
the
the
donation to the
municipality.
Restoration Fund,
Right.
Town of Winchester Restoration Fund, because we're not a 501(c)(3).
Right. Got it. Okay, thanks.
All in favor to move on to a third meeting? All in favor? Unanimous. Item C, driveway ordinance for 543 East Wakefield Boulevard.
So we do have guests with us tonight. We have Mr. Cirque and his representation, as well as our Director of Public Works, Jim Rollins. Our town attorney is not here. He was not able to be here tonight. I do have some written instructions from him for the Board of Selectmen that I'll read first, and then the Board of Selectmen can direct as it sees fit. Our town attorney is recommending that the Board of Selectmen first listen to both sides, and the question that needs to be answered is, can you establish that the ordinance applies because there was or was not a substantial reconstruction? If there was a substantial reconstruction on this property for this driveway, then the ordinance does apply and a variance is needed because the construction has already taken place. In the event that you determine that the ordinance, that there was not substantial reconstruction, the ordinance would not apply and a variance is not needed. So that is the first question to be answered by the Board of Selectmen. In the event that you decide that there was substantial reconstruction and you need to move forward with consideration of a variance, you have to decide if the variance is acceptable and if the conditions that Jim has offered up already and will go over again for you tonight are acceptable. In the event that there is not substantial reconstruction, there is not a variance needed, then there is no further discussion that's needed from the Board of Selectmen. Would you find that to be true?
That sounds proper.
Okay. Then, at your direction, Todd, you can have either Jim or Mr. Cirque and company go first, and
So you're up here, you can go first, sir.
Okay. Just put this up where everybody can see it. This is the third time we've been here, and it's been at least 3 months since I was here last, so I'm just gonna briefly go over to refresh people's recollection. Mr. Cirque's property is here, and what I've highlighted in yellow and green are areas that changed. The green area here and here were gravel driveway. The gravel driveway extended all the way across the property and from the house down to the road. That driveway, which was gravel, was taken out, and it's been now lawn has been put in and some plantings, things like that. This back area here was a patio, and that was again an impervious surface, and he installed pervious pavers in there. So overall, the percentage of impervious surface on the lot was reduced by 34%, from 34% to 22%, which is a 35% reduction in the pervious surface on this lot as a result of the construction activities. All right, the driveway ordinance expressly limits the application of the new driveway construction or reconstruction of 50% or more of the driveway. And what happened here was significant portions of the driveway were removed. That's not reconstruction or construction of a driveway. This portion here was gravel, and it was simply resurfaced with asphalt. Now, excuse me. I'm going to put this down here just so people can continue to look at it if they'd like. The dictionary clearly distinguishes between the words construction and reconstruction. And the definitions are up there, and this is all in your package that I provided you. And these are photographs of, this is what the driveway looked like before, and this is what the driveway looks like after. You see the grassed-in areas there, and the driveway and the resurfaced driveway there. Now, between the last meeting and this meeting, I was requested by Josh to, I was told that Mr. Rawlings talked to our construction guys, and they would not verify that they did not reconstruct, or that they wouldn't verify that they did not reconstruct that driveway. I have affidavits here, and including one of which says that he specifically told Mr. Rawlings that he did not reconstruct that driveway. And I will provide you with copies of these affidavits. So Mr. Rawlings' statement that no one would verify that they didn't do this is incorrect. Specifically, Mr. Sokolik, who was the excavation contractor, said that he did a lot of things there, all right, but reconstructing the driveway was not one of them. Mr. Fergale, who did the paving, said all he did was lay a surface of asphalt onto the driveway. Now, I have been unable to find any instances prior to the Surkeys of the town taking the position that putting a new surface onto an existing driveway, whether it's asphalt on asphalt or asphalt on gravel, is reconstruction, and they've interpreted it that way since the inception of this ordinance back in 1986. So it seems to me that this is a relatively new interpretation of this ordinance, and I think it is clearly contrary to the plain language that is in the ordinance, that all they did was put a new surface on top, a new impervious surface on top of an existing impervious surface, and that is not reconstruction, that's resurfacing. So at this point in time, I would yield to Mr. Rawlings to present whatever he would like to present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I read those affidavits?
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind giving Mr. Rollins the microphone, that would help our viewers online. There are two there,
He's
Jim.
got to come up here, you can use it.
Oh, he will, but he needs some space too.
For the record, Jim Rollins, Public Works Director, Town of Winchester. The affidavit from Dan Fergale is pretty much what he told me when I spoke to him on the phone, so I'm in agreement with that one. The affidavit from Paul Sokolik is not consistent with the conversation I had with them, nor is it consistent with the observations of the project, not completely consistent. So I'm a bit surprised. But I guess a lot of it boils down to people's interpretation of the term reconstruct. I have to believe that's what, you know, each of these contractors probably has a different understanding of what that means compared to what the ordinance states. The ordinance states reconstruction is, you know, the alteration of 50% or more of the length of the driveway. If you look at his photos, alteration of the length could include removal of a driveway. There's places where you need a certain amount of size. You know, you can't be below a certain width. So, you know, these are the things that trigger driveway permits, to keep those types of things from happening. So that's one of the reasons the length is included as one of the criteria. And if you look at that, you know, that drawing that they showed, clearly 50% or more of the length has been altered, which would trigger it. Above and beyond that, you know, the whole project was, you know, at the beginning, Paul Sokolic was, you know, he stopped me one day and said, hey, you know, this is what we're doing here. And he did, you know, one of the things in here is, it does talk about, you know, some water coming from a property south of their property. He said the applicant wanted to address that water as part of the project and wanted to know how I wanted it done. That's not exactly the way a project is supposed to work. Typically, an applicant says, this is what I want to do. Does this work for you? So I said, well, this is how this should be done. You come to me with what you want to do, and let's see how we can work together to pull this off. The intent of the applicant was there from the start to take care of this water, to, you know, do things. They just never followed up with the original intent. So it seems a little disingenuous to now be saying they don't think they need to do this, or that this is not a new driveway. I'm not sure I need to say much more than that. I have no doubt in my mind this is a new driveway. The shape changed, the contour changed, the surface changed. It's a new driveway. I don't see how you can come up with another outcome, but if you do, you do. I'm not sure I have much else to say.
Jim, what triggered this? Was it getting a lot of runoff from this driveway? What triggered all of this action in the first place?
What triggered it for me was the applicant's request that I sign off on a certificate of occupancy. They've gone through all the other, you know, building processes and inspections. And so I went to look at the site and said, oh, I don't have a driveway permit for this. Yeah, I knew they were doing it because Paul told me he was going to come ahead and, you know, figure out what we were going to do about the drainage problem. You know, the project is complicated. You know, I'll give them that, and they did a nice job on it. The parcel is a water course, and they've really diverted the water around the house and discharged it on the south end of that driveway, and that water they diverted has no place to go. So it bleeds out onto the road and, you know, causes icing. I will acknowledge that we had an icing problem there both before and after construction. But again, at the very beginning of the project, I was told their intent was to try to resolve that problem. I did talk to Mr. Sokolic about that, and he was very cryptic in his discussion of that wet spot to the south, and I don't know why.
Is there any culverts in that area to drain the water off?
Not that I know of. You know, not to say there couldn't be something that was buried there long ago that's just been lost to time. But, you know, they diverted the water from this water course around, you know, and it's their responsibility to manage it. And when they put a driveway in, if they had reshaped that enough to give the water a place to go, you know, I've already said, hey, I think the slope, even though it's steeper than it was or should be, I can live with that. The problem is the disruption and the ice and the cost to the town and the taxpayers for the water that they fail to manage on their site. And the driveway is what's keeping that from happening, you know, keeping that from draining away.
If they were able to create a culvert on their own expense to help alleviate the condition of the water runoff in the winter and icing, would that be a solution for you?
It would be, and that's, you know, that's what I proposed to them months and months ago over in the Blue Room when we all sat together, and I think they'd rather spend money on lawyers than engineers, so that's where we are.
Would the particular runoff that you were proposing and that you talked about, would that interfere with the current condition of the road? Would the town have to take up other issues if they were able to create the solution?
It depends on what the solution is, you know, and which brings us right back to, you know, the very beginning of this project when the contractor told me they wanted to resolve this problem. How do we do it? This depends on how they choose to do it. If they want to, you know, put a catch basin out by the road and run it down the road rather than their driveway, then it would involve doing something in the road. You know, if they wanted to keep it within the right of way but off the road, then it wouldn't, you know, so it really depends on what they choose to do, which direction they choose to go. I think they probably need to go north, but I don't know that the grades require that.
But also you know, basically they had a river running through the house.
I don't know if it went through the house or around the house, but.
Well, they had it through the house and then they were moving it around the house.
Okay.
You know, right, so it's still coming down the driveway, it's not diverted any other place, you know. That's what I get here, I prefer multiple tasks to, you know, excavate the gravel core basement and had a small stream running underneath the house. So, they, you know, I have one of those.
Yeah.
But I'm not next to anybody. But the point is, you're saying that they just didn't even get a driveway permit.
Correct.
Right.
Well, so that's the whole question here, just to make sure everybody's understanding. So the work was done. No permit was requested because it's the position, and I don't mean to misrepresent you, but correct me if I'm wrong, the position of the applicant here in this
They
case.
didn't
They don't
disrupt.
believe that they, meet the definition of the driveway ordinance, so they don't believe they need a permit in the
Right.
first place.
Right.
Jim is contending that not only did they need a permit, they did work without a permit, and now they need a variance.
Right.
So the permit's off the table at this point. The work
Right.
was done.
Right.
So the question is, do they need a variance, or are they free to go? That's the first question. And if they need a variance, then the next question would be, can we find some way to move forward that makes everybody happy? But that's
Josh,
beside.
I haven't heard a vote on whether or not this is
I know.
the ordinance or not, so I wouldn't say the question is the variance and then.
I'm trying to make sure the Board of Selectmen understands the
Okay,
processes and
well,
procedures.
Let's not skip over that. That's it.
I think they understand. Thank you, though.
Okay.
So that is the question in front of you. The question in front of you is, should this have had a permit because it meets the definition of a reconstructed driveway?
Excuse me, I need to respond to some of the comments that Jim made.
Okay, I would leave that to the mayor.
Go ahead.
First of all, Jim altered the definition under the ordinance. The ordinance does not use the word appearance. I don't care how you change the appearance of a driveway. It's reconstruction, it's not appearance. okay? Just take a look at the ordinance. The word appearance isn't in there, okay? Number two, I'm trying to remember because I had only three things, and I just remembered the first one. I haven't gotten to the second one yet.
Would you be willing to put some money into creating a solution that?
No. No, not at all. If we don't resolve this today, this is going to Superior Court. Okay? Am I being clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're clear.
All right. There's
You're saying that. Are you saying that too?
Yes.
You're not willing to look at a solution here that might create a better road condition?
I'm all for the road condition, but it's a previously existing issue that came down on this piece of property. And what we did was everything correctly to get that water to mitigate any kind of issues that were at the road. But there's 20 acres of wetlands above us, going right down to the middle of this cottage, through the middle of the house. The house was falling down. We had no choice but to divert the water around. We went through wetlands, we went through engineering, we went through all the dog and pony shows that we had to do. We applied for every permit that we, at the time, ignorant about a lot of the variances and whatever else you do. And we learned as we went along. And we did a masterful job getting that water to come down and not erode each time it rained. Now, the problem with the road, I don't think that's my problem.
Was there a problem with water pooling in front of the property before all
Yes,
this
there was.
construction?
We have some
So-
evidence of that.
Okay.
Pictures were taken before we even reconstructed.
These are the pictures of the property prior to any work being done. The water in the basement, the water running down the driveway, the water pooling in front of the property. And as Jim stated, this is pre-existing, and his property line is here. So this water is starting to the south of his property already. It's not, this is water from the mountain. This is not water from his driveway.
The photos on the right, is that before or after?
This is after, all right? There's still water pooling, all right? Just as there is there. The only difference is you're not getting gravel coming down off of his driveway into the road now because he has a driveway, an asphalt driveway. Now, there have been several properties that have resurfaced their driveways right around the lake. No permits have been taken. Right? And the town is not enforcing this interpretation, and I will call it a novel interpretation that seems to be applying just to the Cirques, right? Seriously with anyone else. We've documented several properties in which where driveways have been resurfaced, repaved, no permit, no nothing.
The one directly to the left of this property is one of them. He's right. There's driveways going in all over the place, and no, I don't have time to track them down. This one here required my signature. So I go, do I sign this? No, I don't. These other ones that just happen, we could start an epic campaign of chasing them down. I suppose that would be, pretty burdensome, but if that's what that's where it goes, that's where it goes. But, but he's pretty good at kind of confusing the issues. There was definitely some water there was an ice problem in that area, and then they diverted all the water from behind the house to the south side of the driveway. It goes right down, a nicely designed swale, and it runs down there. After a big storm, the grass is all bent over because the water flows right down. it's their water, they own it, they cause it, it's their water from their property, whether it's a 20 acres above, or a water course, or the extensive drainage system they put in behind the house, where that pervious patio is, and that water discharges to the south side, and has to run to the north side, and it can't run to the north side because the driveway is impounding it.
I have a document to submit. These are the minutes from an inland wetlands and water courses commission meeting on November 20th, in which all of these issues were presented, and I'm sorry, I miscounted. I thought I had enough.
Here, take this
But if you look at the highlighted portions, all of this was discussed. Mr. Rawlings submitted a letter, all right, concerning this, all right? It was all discussed, and it was approved unanimously. So Mr. Cirque already has a permit for the flow of water off of his property. The only issue that Mr. Rawlings has jurisdiction over is water coming off of his driveway.
That's incorrect.
And water impacting the road.
As it has been for years prior to Mr. Cirque doing anything.
And the question in front of the Board of Selectmen is now the time, was this a substantial enough change to qualify reconstruction such that Mr. Cirque should have sought out an application, or sought out a permit through an application process that could have helped to mitigate the problem that had pre-existed?
Again, if you're taking the position that resurfacing a driveway is reconstruction, then you need to start going after every single person in this town who puts down a new layer of asphalt or puts down a new layer of gravel over their driveway. All right? But you're not. You're singling out Mr. Cirque for special treatment.
I'll at least speak to my own personal interaction with the Department of Public Works when it comes to resurfacing my driveway. Putting a layer of asphalt over a pre-existing layer of asphalt did constitute reconstruction. In my case, fall October 2022, and I was required to file a permit and had it completed.
That's correct. After the issue was joined with Mr. Cirque, all of a sudden, Mr. Rawlings woke up and said, oh, gee, I have to start doing this. Prior to that, never. For 20 years.
I'm wondering.
I'm telling you that that's not true, but thank you.
Then show me a permit prior to 2018 where this was applied for just a resurface. Show me one. I'd love to see it.
Linda?
There were contractors involved in this
Yes,
project.
Mr. Cirque did not do any work himself.
Right. I would assume that these contractors knew the rules and regulations of the town, and if they felt that a permit was required, they would have gone to the town hall and obtained the permits that were.
Mr. Fregale has not obtained a permit from this town for resurfacing, to the best of my knowledge.
He just resurfaced. He didn't do.
That's all, anything was done on the driveway was resurfacing. There was no reconstruction of the driveway. It was just simply putting a new surface over a gravel base that was already there.
But there was, I removed portions of the previously existing gravel driveway.
Yes, that's not reconstructing a driveway, that's removing a portion of it.
He did work. He did extensive work. I would think that he would know that there were applications and.
They didn't agree.
Who didn't
The
agree?
contractors did not seem to think that they needed to take out a permit. They agreed that this was not a reconstruction, and their affidavits support that.
Did they take out any?
I might be able to help clarify
Okay,
that a little bit.
thank you.
I think when you get multiple contractors, you'll have one guy that's doing, the aggregate base and rough grading. Then the paving contractor comes in and does the fine grading. Not generally a lot of communication between them on who pulls the permits. Fregale is notorious for pulling permits. I've emailed him and chase them all. And a lot of times if an excavating guy is doing the site work, then he just assumes the paving guy will get it, so. I'm not claiming that anybody intentionally, tried to skirt the system. I do know that they came to me at the very beginning of the project telling me this is what they wanted to accomplish. And I said, give me a plan and let's work together on this, and haven't seen them since.
Questions?
Right, well, like I said, if we can't resolve this today, we're gonna have to go to the next step. So let's deal with the water issue is dealt with in the Inland Wetlands Commission, right? He received a permit from the Inland Wetlands for all of the drainage changes on his property. They're all covered in that application. As a matter of fact, this map was the plan that was submitted to them, all right, for, that was approved by the Inland Wetlands. Now,
It says that the driveway was not on the original permit.
I'm sorry?
It says that the driveway was not on the original permit and
The
has
driveway-
since been
I'm
paved.
sorry. The driveway isn't before the Inland Wetlands.
Well, it's in the inland wetlands report.
Right, but the driveway permit issue wasn't before Inland Wetlands. And again, as Josh has pointed out, we did not believe at any point in time we needed a driveway permit because a plain reading of the statute says reconstruction more than 50% of the length of the driveway. They didn't reconstruct. They resurfaced, which is not reconstruction.
I think-
How deep would you have to be reconstruction?
I'm sorry?
How deep would you have to go to have reconstruction?
You have to go, it didn't go anywhere. They didn't even scratch the surface. They just simply put asphalt over it.
Well, no, he's saying he removed some, and he had to.
That's true. He removed, you can remove a driveway without a permit.
He
Can you
removed
not?
gravel.
You can remove a gravel driveway and completely grass it over. You don't need a driveway permit for that, do you?
But if it's not gonna be a driveway, I guess you don't, if it's gonna be grassed over.
Well, those portions are no longer gonna be a driveway. This is not a driveway and this is not a driveway. All he did was, he grassed over what was driveway. That's not reconstructing a driveway, that's removing a driveway. All he did was resurface this portion with asphalt over an existing gravel base. And again, it has not been my experience that the town, prior to Mr. Cirque, has interpreted that putting an asphalt base over a gravel driveway when you're not rebuilding the gravel driveway or rebuilding the base is reconstruction. And all of the drainage issues were resolved with the inland wetlands permit. Now, these are all pictures of houses within a half mile of my client's house. Right? After rainstorm, these pictures were taken on May 1st, where there was a rainstorm at the end of April for about, it had maybe about 2 inches of rain. And this was taken the morning after the rain stopped, and you can see all the driveways that are dumping gravel and water onto East Wakefield Boulevard. And you can see them all. This is my client's driveway, the exact same time, the exact same morning on May 1st. It's already dry and it's not even noon. And the rain stopped around 9 o'clock. And this is what the driveway looked like on July 10th, just after we had that 8 inches of rain. Again, lots of water, but they're coming from the property up down the street, and all of that drainage was approved by the Inland Wetlands Commission. I haven't given you copies of this picture of the July 10th, so here are those.
one of your basic arguments is not necessarily the definition, but the fairness of the fairness of it being applied.
No, it's the definition. And
Well,
the
but
fact
you
that
keep showing us, well, they didn't do it here, they didn't do it here, they didn't do it there. So your argument, right now, I'm hearing a lot of, well, you don't apply it fairly over, so why should you apply it to us?
No, I mean, I am making that point, but the point is that it hasn't been applied all over, and it hasn't been applied for 20 years, because it's not the definition of what reconstruction is.
But maybe it is, and we just haven't been able to get to all of them.
You know, a driveway doesn't move. If you see a driveway when you're driving down a road and you see that it was reconstructed and you don't have a permit, it doesn't take a lot of difficulty to say to the person, like he did with Mr. Cirque, go get a permit.
Yeah, this hasn't been difficult.
So there's a draining easement between the two property owners.
Yes,
Is that the north or the south side?
that's the south side. And again, this was all approved by the Inland Wetlands and
No, I know,
Watercourses
I'm just
Commission.
trying to read.
That's irrelevant.
Right, so the question on hand,
How
I
is it
do
irrelevant?
feel,
I'm sorry, how is it irrelevant?
it's irrelevant because the question is, did you reconstruct the driveway or not? That is
Okay,
what,
to
that is the,
first question.
hold
It's
on.
not irrelevant to the second.
I never asked another question. The
Okay.
question on hand is, was the driveway reconstructed according to the Board of Selectmen's interpretation? If the Board of Selectmen interprets that you needed a permit, then we will go forward and talk about what comes next with the variance. If the Board of Selectmen determines that it does not meet the definition of reconstruction, then we will not have that conversation, you would be free to
Okay.
go.
And
That is the question at hand. This
Right.
is, in my opinion, superfluous and irrelevant.
Well, it's relevant to issues that Mr. Rawlings brought up in conjunction with the first question, all right? It was only brought up in response to Mr. Rawlings' comments. Your comments that, oh, there's water here coming off from this, you were talking about water quite extensively during your comments, which has, you're right, has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the issue of reconstruction. I agree with you, Josh, but I brought it up because Mr. Rawlings did.
From my perspective, that's the question in front of the Board of Selectmen, and that's the guidance that we've received from the town attorney. If the Board of Selectmen doesn't feel that it can weigh in at this juncture, then my recommendation would be to have a judge weigh in. But any actions on the table at this point from the Board of Selectmen?
I'm not prepared. I can't give an honest, researched answer. If I had known this was going to be on the agenda, I would have reviewed the documents that we were given, how many weeks ago?
This is the third meeting.
This wasn't on the agenda.
This wasn't on the agenda.
Josh put it on the agenda weeks ago.
No.
This is not on the agenda for
today's
tonight because I
agenda.
never received any correspondence back from you that you would be in attendance tonight. So it was added to the agenda here at the table while you were sitting in the room. We don't need to get into that, but that's what happened. Over a month ago, it was June 29th, that you and I sent my last correspondence. I never heard back. So it did not make it onto this meeting agenda.
You have rescheduled this meeting at your convenience several times.
And you have as well.
Okay. No, I have not.
Yeah, you were out of town.
You were out of town, your client was out of town. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of this. The bottom line here is that, as Linda said,
We had to reschedule that because you insisted that I get affidavits.
that's
Right.
not true. Actually, I have emails that I will pull up and read into the record right now stating that you and your client at different points in time throughout June and July would not be in town. That is why we were
That's
looking
true.
towards August.
That's
I
true.
never
And
received,
then when you asked for affidavits, I said, my client has to be here.
and you never confirmed that August 7th was the date that you would come in, therefore you were not put on the agenda.
All right, fine.
In any case, that is why Linda is feeling unprepared at this moment in time, and
Okay.
I want to make sure that everybody understands.
I was unaware that this wasn't on the agenda. I thought it was absolutely clear that everything was rescheduled for the 7th, and I didn't need to confirm with you. You told me that that's the date.
Okay, well, I sorry that there was a miscommunication, obviously, but
All right,
the point was not made.
all right.
It's my belief that the work that you did on the sides of the driveways here is reconstruction, but I don't believe it's enough to hit that 50% mark. Is that what the ordinance calls?
So this is ordinance section 222-12, applicability. This chapter shall apply only to new construction of driveways and to substantial reconstruction of existing driveways. Substantial reconstruction, for the purposes of this section, shall mean any reconstruction of 50% or more of the length of the driveway. By that definition, if reconstruction involves the removal of gravel from the area, 100% of the length of the driveway was reconstructed.
I agree with Todd. I think it's less than 50%. If whatever the blue, the dark green, the little green thing is the beginning of the driveway.
The one in the
So,
back?
no, that's a patio in
behind the
the
house.
I know,
rear
but
of
it's
the
a dri-
house.
Where's the house on that,
grass.
sir?
I know that. Where does the
this is
driveway
gravel.
begin?
Where's the house?
Here's the road, and that's the house.
Right.
Right there.
Oh,
So
From there to
100% of the
there,
length,
oh, so it doesn't go all the way up to the little green thing?
no.
Oh.
No, it doesn't go anywhere near that, if that's.
I know, well, I don't know. That's, to me, that looks like a house and a driveway. So from the house all the way down there.
This is approximately 48 feet.
It doesn't matter. All I'm
Right.
saying is, I thought with that darker green one, so that patio's behind the house.
Yep.
Yes.
Got it. Oh, then I disagree necessarily. So we're talking about dark green and light green. So close, I can't tell.
The yellow is the driveway and also a walkway. There's a concrete walkway.
I know, but if the original driveway was the full width of it.
Yes, it was the full width
Right.
from the house to the road.
Right.
Would you show me that picture again?
Which picture?
The original, the full width?
They didn't move the house.
No, the full width of the driveway before the work.
There you go, full width.
It's from there all the way over to there.
Is the green larger than the
And while
yellow?
you're looking at that, look at the width, also look at the contour. There's a change in contour,
Yeah.
and,
It creates a little bit of a swell there, right?
and so that area has changed its slope as well, so that would be added to the 50% length. You know, it's clearly a new driveway, it just clearly is.
I disagree with that. I think you have one angle that's closer straight on, and then one's from the side. He did not change the driveway, and the affidavit said that nobody regraded the driveway.
Well, certainly between Exhibit 4 and, what's the other one, 5, there does look like an additional mound in there.
We'd have to be there to know.
Well,
And if we had advance notice, we
You
could
would
have
have
gone
taken a
there.
ride by.
Well, again, my client reasonably interpreted the statute.
No,
that-
I understand that. All I'm saying is what Linda said, is the fact that it wasn't on the agenda. The agenda's posted since Friday, so
Okay.
we didn't know. You show up, I was like, okay, what's this, and they add you on, but if we were able to look at it, which we haven't because we didn't know, then we would have seen that there was a swell and no swell. We don't know what the shading is or not,
Well, I went through all of this the last time we were here in May.
Right,
Right,
May.
in
And
May,
I have a
yes.
short memory.
Okay, but if you had those questions in May, why didn't you look at it between then and now? My client keeps having to pay me to come back here, all right, now it'll be for the 4th time. And I think it's rather unreasonable. I think that the board needs to make a decision, and then needs to make a decision, if they decide that it's reconstruction, that's fine, all right? If they make a decision that they're gonna grant a variance, that's fine too. If they say, well, we're going to impose water control provisions on you as a condition to the variance, that is where my client is going to draw the line.
The other option that the Board of Selectmen has on the table is to simply table this item until the next meeting. There's nothing within the ordinance that requires you to hear out a variance case within a certain amount of time. I understand that there's a level of frustration with, the timeliness of this application and the variance and so forth. However, if you feel unprepared to make a determination, you can postpone it to the next meeting, have the chance to walk up, go see it yourself in the next 2 weeks, and we can make sure that it's on the agenda for the next time. Whether Mr. Cirque and his representation feels that they need to move forward with some other proceeding, there's no onus on you to grant a variance or decide that a variance is not required at this meeting. There's no legal requirement for you to make that determination. It is just the word of the applicant at this point in time. But that being said, I would like to reflect, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this interpretation. I'm not sure if I do. That's for you to determine as the Board of Selectmen. But if you contend that the removal of gravel is reconstruction, the definition that is in front of you right now is substantial reconstruction shall mean any reconstruction of 50% or more of the length of the driveway. So if you believe that removing gravel is reconstruction, and that is the definition by which that is part of the definition by which you're going, 100% of the driveway length was reconstructed by that definition. It's a question of how you interpret it that needs to be answered.
I agree with what Josh just said. If you think that that removal of gravel and grassing it over is the reconstruction of a driveway, then he's right. We did 100% of that if that is what the definition means. I doubt very much that another arbiter of this decision might agree, but we'll see.
But as always, if the board is unprepared to make a decision, I would recommend that you postpone such a decision.
I'm not prepared, and I'd like the definition again, so I can study it.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, should this go to, you say, we'll take you to court,
Superior Court, yes.
Superior Court. You're gonna need an engineer of some sort to support you. We'll need an engineer to support us in all of this. And it just seems that everybody is just using a lot more money than we need to.
Well, my client is fed up. I just can't put it any simpler than that.
Maybe the town is fed up with.
Well, that's
with people
true.
getting away with stuff that they shouldn't get away with.
Well, that may be true, okay, but it is what it is, right? And if you're not prepared to go forward, then make your decisions accordingly.
Josh, I'd like to bring it up next meeting.
When is the next meeting, Josh?
Next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight,
Which is
7 o'clock, Monday, August 21st.
21st. Okay. My son's getting married on the 19th, but I'll be back.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to table it till the 19th, till the 21st?
And maybe a site inspection authorization to inspect the site would be in order. Some level of written permission.
You can, Randy?
You have my permission. Walk all around, see what we did. Just remember what we started with. It was a stone foundation. It was collapsing the house. Drainage was going through the house, around the house. We did nothing but help that situation by mitigating what was coming up the hill, slow it down, keep the erosion from happening.
Yeah.
We did everything.
Yeah, you improve the looks of the house and everything. I see all that. I see the improved driveway and everything. I think it's just, you're putting before us a decision about a definition here that I don't know if we're capable of.
When we applied for the permit to actually do this work, no one told us we needed a driveway permit. If you're building in Harrington, you don't get a permit to do these kind of things without a driveway permit, or you do not go any further. 2 years into this project, we were told to get a driveway permit.
Yeah.
And then just, it slid downhill from there. And then from there, we asked Mr. Rollins to come down because we knew we had an issue. He comes down a year later after the driveway's paved and says, now what are we gonna do? Nothing. We tried to mitigate everything. We tried to communicate with him. There's a lot of change of personnel. We started with Steve Sadowski.
Yeah.
Steve, he was the land court issues with the transition, and now there's another person, Mike, he's involved in this, and now we got another one, Jeffrey. I mean, I don't even have a chance to get used to these names before they even change their positions. We've been trying to apply for all these permits since 2018. We've been applying for permits and asking for help. It's a difficult problem around the lake. There's no continuity. One department doesn't know what another department is doing. Now we get to the driveway, we passed all the litmus tests, and now we get to the driveway, don't want to sign off. Because I'm responsible for the water coming off the hill. I'm not. That water was there before me, it's gonna be there after me. The road is-
I don't think anybody's questioning the responsibility of the water. It's just the definition
Well,
of the.
no, once you've taken that water and you've diverted it somewhere, you're responsible for where it goes.
If they diverted it,
Well,
yeah.
It's clear, they put an extensive drainage system behind the house.
Well, that
They
is-
diverted
I
it,
don't know if you
it
realize-
was going through the house according to what they were saying, now it goes around.
Some of those.
Correct. You know,
Some is going on the
they
other
captured it in catch basins, they ran it out of pipes, they developed swales. Yeah, it's their ground, it's their water at that point.
That's-
They created it, they own it.
That's the other thing that I forgot, is there are catch basins. All right, one is to the south of him and one is to the north of him. The problem is that the high point between those two catch basins is the property to the left of the property to the south of his land. Right, the high point is at the middle of his gravel driveway.
So if you're looking at photo 5,
I think I have a photo of it. Just a moment. This is the house to the, immediately to the left of his, to the south of his, and that's the high point right there. The water goes this way to this catch basin this way, and goes that way in front of the Cirques property, in front of the property next to the right, to the left of him, to a catch basin. And
So what would happen if the hump was removed
The water would flow
to the south?
to the north.
I'm confused. Okay.
this ravine right here is on the property to the south. And this ravine has been dumping water from the mountain behind it for decades, if not longer. And this ravine is where the water's, if you follow this ravine straight to the road, that's where all the water is coming out.
Is that ravine pre or post-construction?
That's not Mr. Cirque's ravine.
That was there.
That was there.
So it's never changed?
It's never changed.
Got it, yeah,
So which property is that on?
That's the Ryan's property.
the south.
Ryan Werber's.
I would recommend that we try and plan a set time where we can all go and see the property between now and then. That way we all have the opportunity to see it together, talk about it, understand, discuss the definition while we're actually looking at it, involve.
You can't have a quorum though.
Oh yeah, that's true. All right, well, we'll do some separate sections. But if we go in groups, I think you can have a little bit of a better understanding of and
Go
hearing.
ourselves.
Are these sessions something that I should be in attendance?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Just like Jim said, it's a good point, Jim. Thank you. We'll make sure that it's not a quorum, so no decision could be made. It's not a
Okay,
legal meeting
and
to any
Jim
extent.
will or will not be in attendance? If I'm not gonna be in attendance, I'd prefer Jim not to be in attendance.
I'll ride by
You-
myself.
I'm sorry?
I'll ride by my bike and
What
myself.
about another member of the street department? Would that be fitting? Perhaps Phil?
If you're having advocates, you should either have advocates or you should not.
In that case, I think we need to have advocates.
It still comes down to the definition, doesn't it?
Always will.
And no matter how we see it, live or through this way, it's still gonna come down to the definition.
And you're still not going to see what happened between point A and point Z, really. And that's really the question that we're trying to describe here is, was there reconstruction in the middle? That's what you don't have a picture of, right? We know what it looked like before, we know what it looks like after. Does what happened meet the definition of reconstruction? That's the only question.
Like I said, if you decide that removal is reconstruction, you don't need to go any further.
Right.
If you don't decide that, then you gotta look at just what was done to the driveway that is now in existence. And was more than half of it reconstructed.
Jim, hearing all of this tonight, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to add, I can just kind of reiterate real quick. I think you drive by, it would be very helpful whether you get a group together or you go on your own. You know, get the before and after photos and look at them and go out and look at it. You just ask yourself, is this a new driveway or is this not a new driveway? You know,
No,
based on your
was it
interpretation-
reconstructed, not is it new?
Let him talk, please.
Well,
He keeps
Let him
misquoting his own
talk.
ordinance.
Would you please let
I'm
him talk?
asking him a question, not you.
was it reconstruction? And that's fine. Just go look at it, you know. And I don't know why he doesn't like the word new, because new construction needs a permit, new driveway needs a permit, so we'd rather not use that term. But it's, to me, it's clear as day. And I think if you really look at it and, study the ordinance a little bit, it's confusing as it is, you just read it, figure out what you believe its intent is, and then take a look at it, and I have very little doubt you'll think they need a, and that's all.
Fair.
Okay.
Was topsoil put down where you did the grass?
I'm sorry, say again?
Did you put topsoil down where the grass is?
Randy, did he put topsoil or sod on top of the gravel? Or did he remove gravel?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Where you took the gravel driveway on both sides out and you grassed it over, did he remove the gravel and put topsoil down and then seed it or put sod on it? Or did he just put sod right over the gravel? Is that the
Yes.
question?
Yep.
There was some topsoil spread out. You can't plant. We use sod.
You used a little bit of topsoil and then sod on top of the
Correct.
existing gravel, so.
There's a couple inches of topsoil.
But you didn't remove the gravel?
No,
So no gravel was removed
no,
from any part,
I don't believe so.
not on any side.
I don't believe so.
I don't think you would need to grow grass.
I'm just making sure, because I felt
Yeah.
up to this point in time, we
No,
were discussing the gravel being removed.
No, it's.
So this changes my vision of what it
That
looks
was a good question.
Yep.
Connie?
Yeah, there was a couple inches of topsoil put on, and then the sod was probably around 2 inches. So
Yeah.
$543. Right? 543 East?
the number's right on the house, on the porch area.
Is that west or east? West Whitby? East. East, oh, good. I've been going the wrong way, thank you.
I'm sorry, if I said east, I apologize.
No.
It is east.
It is. No.
I know nothing about the lake, so.
Oh, it is east.
543 East Wakefield.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking about my other client down the road who was on Westwood. All right.
Okay, so we'll,
See you in 2 weeks.
members of the board will take a look and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Okay, all right. 21st, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
All right. I'm confirmed.
You're confirmed.
Let's, because he's been here so many times, let's try to put him first on the agenda.
Okay.
Make that decision.
Move along. All right.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item 12, new business, 23-56, refunds is recommended by the Collector of Revenues.
So you have a sum of total recommended refunds of $2,440.75, divided into 3 separate sections, being $1,627.22 of motor vehicle refunds, $83.85 of personal property refunds, and $729.68 of real estate refunds. A few of those being related to overpayments, the rest of them being related to certificates of correction, and I recommend that all be approved as presented.
Second?
Thank you. Only discussion I have is your sheet is incorrect. You got 76 cents, not 75. Yeah. So that's corrected, 75 cents. Any discussion? Other discussion?
What were you saying? I didn't hear you.
His
The
sheet?
cover sheet that was
Is-
prepared doesn't have the correct total. The correct total is $2,440.75, not 76 cents.
Give me that total again.
$2,440.75
That's what's there.
No, on the sheet.
on the cover sheet,
On the cover.
Oh.
1 cent off.
All in favor? Unanimous? Item B, discussion of the fluoride study. Jack?
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence as I have prepared a statement that I want to follow through. I made this carefully, and I intend it to be read as I can. I'm
can I
raising
just-
this
can I-
item as a discussion.
Jack, can I just ask one thing? This is the Water and Sewer
I understand.
Commission, so there's nothing we're gonna be deciding on.
No,
And I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's these cards. that
because you
went
didn't
out.
get a card today.
Right,
Okay.
I am well.
So,
Now we're gonna talk about
Let
it.
me raise this as a discussion point regarding a survey that is questioning the elimination of fluoride to the municipal water supply.
Oh, it's asking residents to vote?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It's
A survey.
asking.
Yeah, I
Oh,
got it.
survey.
Yes,
Thank
the
you.
survey.
Thank
The
you.
survey.
You wanna see it?
In reviewing the Water and Sewer Commission meetings minutes, it appears that the initiative for this began in January from the public comments made by David Lapointe, who claimed inaccurately that a referendum regarding fluoride was, quote, barely passed without any reference to date or scientific information. Further, the same individual claimed, without any factual information, that the discontinuation of fluoride use would result in, quote, small savings. He also mentioned in the same public comment that there could be potential toxin in the fluoride supply, again, without any scientific evidence. It appears from the subsequent meetings of the Water and Sewer Commission from that January meeting, little discussion ensued regarding whether there should be a continuation of fluoride use in the town's public water supply. However, other than that public comment made by Mr. Lapointe, there appears to be no others by the commission meetings minutes regarding discussion of any scientific value of fluoride. Agenda for the discussions for the commission's meetings only offered an item of postcard wording for a potential survey. In May, the commission members, who are appointed by us, the Board of Selectmen, voted to send postcards for a, quote, vote on the continuation of using fluoride, again, without any scientific background or other initiatives for doing so. Additionally, the commission voted to send this vote as part of its August billings. In July, commission employee Jeff Rhines presented to the commission direct information from a water conference he had recently attended and told the commission, number one, fluoride treatment in water is ranked at number 7 on the list of top 10 health advances in the United States. 2, fluoride treatment helps with corrosion by raising the pH level. 3, removal of fluoride would change the overall makeup of the water. And 4, if removed, another additive would have to be added to help with the corrosion. Now, even with this information, the commission continued its plans to survey water users, but instead of adding the survey to the August bills, as they had planned, went to the expense of sending postcards with an additional expense of an enclosed stamped return address card in a separate mailing to users. I received mine today, and it was the first time I had been aware of any of this discussion about fluoride. Nowhere in the postcard information sent to users was there any information regarding scientific information about fluoride use, cost benefits, or even why the elimination of fluoride was being considered. Additionally, the postcard return was a yes/no type vote for continuing fluoride with some small space for comments. Now, this action by the Commission, I believe, is inappropriate. And while there are some members of the Commission, one in particular who is a candidate for the Board of Selectmen in November, they call for wider open transparency in government, yet those members have not taken any public hearings or given this fluoride discussion over the past 7 months any public transparency to its action. A voluntary survey, such as the one the Commission is now conducting, would be an inappropriate way to decide a discontinuation of a health benefit that has existed in this town for more than 50 years. Now, as you say, I know we as a Board of Selectmen do not have any overseeing ability to what the Commission does. But certainly, as elected representatives of all the voters in town, and the Commission is appointed, remember, we should speak out regarding the Commission's use of money for a survey after its professional water department employees and other scientific evidence has shown the value of fluoride treatment in public water. It should be noted, there was no public outcry for considering the use of fluoride, except from one individual. And from Commission minutes, there appears to have been very little attempt to garner more scientific information or public input. This, I do believe, is a disservice to water users and represents closed-minded thinking, certainly not an open awareness, as some members of that commission say is lacking in town government. I make that statement because I think we need to speak out. I know we can't take any action, but it just seems to me such an important issue as a continuation of a health benefit that has been in this town for 50 years is going to be decided by one person in January who comments about it, and then postcards sent out by the commission that says, well, here's your opportunity to voice, to have your voice heard. 1, I would like to continue having fluoride added to the water. 2, I would like to stop adding fluoride to the water. You get this postcard in the mail today, what? Where's this coming from? Who's writing this? What's it about? Where's the history? Where's the research? What's the motivation for even starting something like this? I think it's a bad precedent, and I'm totally against it. And the fact that the commission is conducting this, quote, non-binding poll to determine if there's a consensus is just improperly done.
Well, I'm glad you recognize that we don't have anything to do with it, but because of what you're saying, I have 2 votes here, and I'm not a water user.
You have 2 votes?
Yeah, one for mine and one for my father's house at the lake.
But they only have septic, right?
They only have sewer, we don't have water.
So how did you get that?
That's a good question.
So they weren't even mailed correctly, and they were mailed in another budget that not only was it mailed with a prepaid card, but also with a stamped card inside. That's that's costly.
2 of them here.
And they're talking about their budgets as being limited, and then they go out and do a survey like this? No way.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, moving to item 13, executive session. Discussions on the possible sale of town-owned land at 9:35 PM.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Unanimous? Over.
Jack, out of curiosity, is it American-made fluoride or Chinese-made?
Say that again?
Is it American-made fluoride or Chinese-made fluoride?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. It's communist Chinese fluoride.
Oh, see, I asked the man. what-
Yeah, but he don't even care. He's for the fluoride. That's all.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
I did mention to you, Glenn, I had to put Bentley down. I had to put Bentley to sleep. Yeah, I did tell you. Oh, I miss him. God, I miss him.
How old is the dog?
He's 11,
Wow.
but I got him when he was 3.5. He was being trained as a service animal for a epileptic child. So he was perfect for me because of PTSD. Got your video on your daughter. Pass on my congratulations to her, would you please?
Oh, I will, thank you.
So, she's a fully certified registered nurse? Where's she gonna go to work?
School. School?
Any school?
School's the higher.
Oh. So she's still going to some sort of training?
She's been, well,
Yeah. She said she's going to a school.
right.
What kind of school? I mean, is she going in for some sort of specialty?
Yes.
What?
Around live.
Just asking.
because I pushed the button and it didn't work.
Oh, okay. So it's just on YouTube Live?
Yeah, just live streaming.
So is that a problem with Charter or Spectrum? Or the button? So who has to fix that? I know you're not a technician.
No, the equipment is unreliable.
So it works sometimes and it don't?
Very expensive to replace.
Couldn't find another sponge for the end of the mic?
No, that got torn off and disappeared.
Not underneath the table or anything?
No,
All right.
no.
Just, yeah. Could go get a sponge probably. General, cut it out, hit it. David.
Oh, thanks. I thought public access, put the line in and the equipment we had to buy?
Yes, she'll spend a lot of money on that. A lot of money. The line's fine, it's just the boxes that feed it out of here old. We had a couple state vendors come in and look at what we had, and they said it was time to get new equipment. But it's very expensive.
It's not gonna get any better with the Federal Reserve having raised the rates. And that's gonna increase the cost of mortgages of close to 7%, not over. And it's gonna, the price of fuel has already gone up to about $3.80 a gallon, the regular. I don't know. specific in a container. Because I do a lot of Chinese stuff.
But what Baltimore found out is what other communities are finding out. The Chinese can't be trusted with their elements that they're putting into and selling us. Like what is, i.e. fentanyl, which is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and is coming from mainland China. Fact, not fiction. So it's a gradual occurrence that happens in us.
You're right.
So that be paid before September 1st?
They delayed it 1 month.
Right. Yep.
That's what we have.
Yeah, that's what they told us to tell people when they called in.
Okay. Thank you.
Looked at that and I'm saying,
I think vacation. I'm not positive. I do remember him indicating the last meeting he was gonna be away in this, one time this month.
Sheila. Does she ever pop in to see you every once in a while? Sheila?
evening, everybody. Meteorologist Mike Slifer here in the early morning.
Read the letter from the Board of Civil Service Commission, like Archulowski said.
I don't know, did they?
Josh read it.
Yeah, Josh, right.
Oh, okay, I guess I wasn't there.
Yeah, no, he read it in its entirety, yep.
Oh, good.
I don't see too many trucks running in and out of, Picasso's, compound anymore.
No, they've got the grounds gated up now.
Yeah, I know, I saw that. They, I mean, was it sold?
What's that?
Was the company sold?
Kind of piecemealed out from what I,
Most of them, they had a lot of fairly new trucks.
oh, yeah, yeah. Very sad.
Yeah, I heard, I guess nobody in the family wanted to take it over. And that same happened in my family. They just didn't want any part of the business, you know? And gets sold off, it just dies. I got a little tired of hauling 4/4 and hindquarters of beef out of the refrigerator strip railroad cars. My dad was butchering that up. I said, no,
Is this civil service in effect?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. They use a different name?
I think, is it 12?
Yes.
XII?
Yes.
That's what they call it in here.
So they're deleting it, basically. From the charter,
Yes.
without the consent of the people. The people's charter. That's what, basically violating their own oath. You don't have to comment on it.
You can't.
I know.
It's a bad put, so I realized, can't ask them certain questions, it puts them in a bad spot.
Right. No, I just made the statement.
I know, I'm a quick learner.
But, you know, so don't put this before the people to make the people decide. Only the select people can decide it. But yet it's the town charter that was approved by the people.
Yes, so they gotta follow the town charter. And if they don't do it, then they're in violation of Title 18 by preventing, under the color of law, they are doing something that basically deprives people of their privileges and rights. I wish I'd known that back 10 years ago. But I'm not a lawyer, and you know. Oh, it's good, guys.
We're back from executive session at 10:25 PM. Can I have a motion? To authorize the town manager to request 3 bids for a new roof on 508 Main Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? No further action from executive session. Item 15, citizens' comments. Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I forgot to announce myself the last time. Captain Stephen Kosinski, 105A Standard Avenue. Just wanted for the record that the poison pen letter I've got, a copy of said has been submitted to the police chief downstairs to put on file, just in the event that that individual who wrote that letter decides to go off the rails and cause any harm to me, my wife, or our property. And last and only thing is, here's a copy of the town attorney to look over, and if he has any questions, he can contact me. And with that, I bid you all a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, David Lapointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winchester, Connecticut. I just want to say that it's unfortunate that tonight the Board of Selectmen voted, not unanimously, thank God, to get rid of basically number 12, the merit system, with regards to Civil Service Commission. So that Civil Service Commission, which was put in effect to be a check and balance for the town and for the employees of the town who merit qualifications for the positions they are applying. I just want to say that I will be supporting all of the Republican candidates for selectmen and for town clerk and for constable and for Board of Education. But I myself, as a Republican, but I'm running also for Board of Education and for selectmen, because I believe that there needs to be an independent watchdog voice, and we can't have the same old politicians that have been in for a long time. So I think that a new Board of Selectmen is long overdue, and I will support the mayor and his team to lead this town again. And even though we've had disagreements, and he's a good man, and I know the town clerk is a good man, and I know Jonathan is a good man also, even though I wasn't picked by the Republicans, nor Jonathan was neither. But people need to see what is going on here in regards to the integrity of the town and who we hire. And these good men and women who serve on the charter revision, who serve on the board of the Commission of Civil Service, have done a yeoman's job. I go to the meetings, same with water and sewer. And to diminish the water and sewer for their volunteer work, they don't get paid like you selectmen get paid, Jack Bork. The men on the water and sewer and those good people are doing a yeoman's job to stop the Chinese communist fluoride that's being put in the water in Winston. We don't want it. Ralph Nader doesn't want it, and Claire Nader doesn't want it, and David Lapointe and his family, Carol and my whole entire family, don't drink Winston water because it has communist fluoride from China, and it's toxic. You want the scientific evidence? I have the pictures, Jack. You're laughing right now, but you know what? Keep drinking the water and see what happens. I won't. Have a good night. God bless you all.
Point of information,
Thank you, Dave.
if I may. I just want to make sure it's very clear that nothing in the charter has been amended. The merit system is still in place, as has been prescribed in the charter for a long time now. Nothing with the merit system will change. It's ordinance number 12 that's been removed, which relates only to the Civil Service Commission. The merit system will remain.
Well,
Just a point of clarification. Thank you.
changing the merit system, what we have now in civil service, with a new rule by the town manager, only to appoint, and then to have the selectmen be in effect the Civil Service Commission, is all gone political. It should be non-political, with civil service being doing the yeoman's work, and then the town manager having the ultimate say, as it says in the charter. But we're going to do away with a volunteer commission that's done a great job. Yes, maybe it's slow, but I know they're working with all the department heads, and they do a great job. I see what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Moving on to Selectmen's comments and reports.
Made my statement earlier.
So just one
Regarding the
thing
Soldiers Monument.
we touched upon earlier, the new charging station that will be down at the rec parking lot at the cemetery and the baseball fields. I think as we get closer to that date, I think it would be appropriate for the town to place a plaque there in John Wiarta's honor and memory at the charging station. And we can deal with that once the charging station comes online.
Is that the same thing the Economic Development Commission was talking about? As I heard they were talking about it too.
That I don't know.
The same thing, what?
Economic Development was talking about a plaque on a meter for John too, or the Conservation Commission. Somebody was talking
Yeah,
about
but
it.
probably Conservation Commission, I would think.
As he was a member of all three, I would deem appropriate. Oh God, Steve's not here. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Jonathan. There's a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor? Thank you. Good night.
Put you back.